The radicalization of the National Guard shooting suspect. 29-year-old Afghan immigrant Ramanullah Lakhanwal reportedly spent weeks alone, isolated in a dark room, during which he experienced depression and manic episodes. How did a loving husband and father, who was once an ally to the United States and the CIA, turn against the country and the people who welcomed him? Here to provide some answers is America's terrorist therapist, psychiatrist, podcast host, Dr. Carol Lieberman. She's author of the book, Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My! How to Protect Your Children in a Time of Terror. Dr. Carol, it's good to talk with you again. So in your professional opinion, how did this happen? How did this CIA helper become an alleged assassin?
Okay. Well, there are different parts to the story. It starts with his having been welcomed to the United States under the Biden regime during the turmoil in Afghanistan as Biden was surrendering. And of course, there were 70 to 80,000 Afghans brought over to America at that time. Now, you can well imagine, with all the turmoil in Afghanistan, these Afghans were not vetted. There was no way that they could be properly vetted. So, one question is, you can take the Afghan out of Afghanistan, but can you take Afghanistan out of the Afghan? We don't know for sure that how the radicalization took place, or how he was radicalized, if he was radicalized online in addition to, once he came to America. But that is going on all the time. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all the different terrorist organizations do public relations, do these recruitments are going on all the time. And there are people going to the Middle East all the time to join these radical organizations. Some of them don't go to the Middle East, they stay here, but they're radicalized. Then there's another aspect to it, which is that some of his friends and neighbors have supposedly contacted, when they saw that his mental health was deteriorating, they allegedly contacted some refugee organizations to try to get help for him. And apparently he didn't get help, and it's very, very vague and fuzzy as far as what happened there. Let's just say that he does have some kind of psychiatric disorder, mental illness. That does not excuse him from, or does not mean that he can't blame it all on that. You can have mental illness and be a terrorist at the same time. And then there's a new theory coming out that perhaps the Taliban had threatened him, that if he didn't carry out some kind of attack, that they would do something, kill or injure his family.
Well, there's also this issue of online radicalization. He was locked in his room for a couple of weeks, allegedly or reportedly. What effect would that have?
Regardless of how much or how little radical Islamist beliefs he brought with him from Afghanistan, certainly, subjecting yourself or reminding himself of all of these things online through the radicalization, through being back in contact either with the Taliban or ISIS or Al-Qaeda, any of these terrorist organizations, could well, especially if he was having a mental illness at the time, an episode at the time, that would remind him, that would encourage him, that would remind him to get back to his roots, things like that. So yes, and even people who weren't born in Afghanistan.
Well, I want to talk about that, because how about young people? I know that spending hours on social media can be detrimental to mental health, especially young people. And we've seen a broader trend of mass shootings to assassination attempts on Donald Trump, assassination of Charlie Kirk, now the Army specialist Sarah Beckstrom in D.C. It seems there's a common thread of online radicalization. So how concerned should we be? Parents, grandparents, what are the warning signs?
Parents absolutely need to be much more aware of what their kids or even their young adults are watching, what websites they're going to, what dark web portals they're going to. Much more concerned about that than most parents are. And, the whole idea of kids being able to bring cell phones into class is just absurd. And so kids, especially after COVID, with the 2 years that they weren't in school, and that really has had a profound psychological impact. And so, for everybody, actually, when you have PTSD, one of the symptoms is that you feel that your life is going to be shorter than what you had expected. And so, teenagers and even 20-year-olds have this sense of that their life isn't going to be as long as they had thought, and they want to go out with a bang. So they're more tempted to do these really kinds of outrageous things, to get famous, to leave a legacy, to be known as something before they die.
Okay, the book is Lions and Tigers and Terrorists. Oh my, how to protect your child in a time of terror. Dr. Carol Lieberman, thank you for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thank you.